Hi everyone. Today excited to have Nihal from Dartle, who is revolutionizing the youth sports, youth soccer. So Nihal, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate the time. So I'm Nihal Pradeep. I'm one of the founders of Dartle. I was a former national basketball athlete, and the vision for us with Dartle is to create equal pathways for athletes whenever they want to try and pursue a profession in sport. So what we're doing at the moment is we're working with football academies to help them build intelligence over player development, right? By simplifying their admin operations, being able to collect more data, and then using that data to improve player pathways, progression, and then eventually also create like a portfolio for an athlete. You could think like a LinkedIn for an athlete, right? So, which can then help them with recruitment, college sponsorships, scholarships, etc. So that's what we're doing. So it's been a couple of years. We're right now expanding into the US quite a bit. That's where we are.
Okay, yeah, tell us a little bit more exactly about the product, not just in high level, but how it actually helps academies.
Sure. I mean, see, today, if you look at most football academies, right, if they're serious about developing a player, right, then they would have a lot of staff in place, and then you need some tools to manage the staff. Then you need to be able to manage all your schedule somewhere. You need to plan out your session somewhere else. You need to then record the feedback from these sessions, and then also at the end of all this, communicate to parents, maybe on a daily basis or even sometimes on a monthly basis, right? So that you can track the progress, what's really happening in the academy. The parents who are paying the fees, they get to see and know what is it that I'm paying that fees for, right? The situation today is to manage all of these football academies using 4 to 5, if not more, tools. Otherwise, they're using pen and paper or even Excel. And the problem with this is like they have to start collecting all this data. There's a lot of time between accessing data from these different platforms, right? You have to bring all of this together and to really build meaning out of this. And this is often a huge headache. Like, fun fact is, like, coaches sometimes are actually spending more time on admin than actual coaching,
Okay.
right? So this is really difficult. So because of this, what happens to players and parents is coaches are they focus on coaching. Once the coaching is done, a lot of the feedback ends on the field. But if you really look at it, if I was a player and I go to an academy, say Kirill is telling me as my coach, listen, Nihal, you have to focus on these couple of aspects of your game, and you have to go home and do these activities. So will I do it? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. There is no tracking, and parents are not aware of what those communications are. 2 weeks later, when the coach is coming back, when you are coming back to the field, because you're managing like 20 other kids, I wouldn't blame you if you would have forgotten the exact feedback that you gave me, right? Now, a month later, the head coach is sitting with you and saying, hey, listen, what is happening with Nihal? I don't see any progress. And that's when there's no log. Like, you have no information to tell your head coach. I have no information to tell my parents. So all of this gets lost. You either maintain it on a piece of paper, which is, again, a lot of headache for the coaches. So what we're trying to do in this case is we're trying to simplify a lot of these processes, which is a lot of admin. So if coaches, academies, etc., are spending, say, 30 minutes on admin today, our mission is to try to reduce that to 5. And in doing so, we are giving more power and control back to the academies, which they can then use for actual player development, right? And as a platform, we automatically enable that to a large extent. In the example that I told you earlier, a coach could actually record a lot of the feedback on the platform itself, which they were not able to do before. And this feedback can then generate actionable recommendations for me. So I might get my individual development, and then I can log and track, and my parents can do it. And then 2 weeks later, when you're coming in, you'll know exactly what was the feedback given to me and what's the effort I had put for that. So eventually, my growth journey is tracked. Now, you're doing this for, say, 2 weeks, a month. This gets built up, right? For a player, this gets built up. And all of this is my performance portfolio. Now, today in the US, when a parent reaches college, I mean, when a kid reaches college age, parents are scrambling between a lot of these different mediums to build like their video portfolios and all of this data to give to a university or to give to a professional team. With Dartle, because all of this data is now coming on a daily basis, you just share your link just like you'll share your LinkedIn profile, right? So that
So
becomes available.
Does the parents own the data as well, and do they have like it in some place, or is it the academies and they will need to ask?
So, in terms of data ownership, there's two types of ownership. There's data owned by the academy. So, everything from the training methodologies, academy KPIs, coach competency frameworks, academy contracts, all of that. Those data is owned by the academy.
Mm-hmm.
And any information related to a player's growth, development, player evaluations, feedback, and all that. All of that information is tied to the player. So, that's a player and parent owned data.
Mm-hmm.
So a player and parent at the moment cannot come and directly register with Dartle. So they can only come via an academy. So an academy just signs up with Dartle. They add the players and parents. But once they are added, even if the academy stops using Dartle, the player and parent will now have access to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which they can later use to get opportunity, at least show the portfolio that they've built up so far. That data is always owned by them. But let's take this example. Let's say a very large club would not want a competitor to see its data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while say I am at your club, you can control whether my data is seen outside or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But once I leave your club, then it's my choice whether I should disclose that data to any club or university.
In building a product like Dartle, right? So you mentioned that there is a lot of data, and data is probably fragmented. So
Right.
from your experience, like what is the biggest challenges with data and even with building the product that you guys face?
So I think a lot of the product challenges today will be obsolete because AI has come in and taken a lot of these challenges away. Like when we were building, for example, we were looking for a lot of key different things. Like for example, the choice of the programming language was in such a way that it was easily scalable, and then we could replicate this in multiple countries.
Mm-hmm.
And to just go through that choice, we took at least 2 months having these conversations, deciding, and then trying to learn the language, trying to build. So today you could just white code that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is how the world is. So the way I see things is a lot of the technology moat will go away very
Mm-hmm.
soon, and it will only the only technology mode that will exist is if you have a patented technology, or if you have deep technology,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a lot of underlying data. So data will still hold a lot of power. So in terms of building something for data and how difficult it is, I think when you're talking about data and analyzing data and interpreting data, the first question is always about what is the accuracy of the information that you're coming out bringing out,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a consumer of the data. So it is important that we're able to prove the credibility and the accuracy of the data based off of scientific evidence. And that is
Mm-hmm.
what we had to do very early on. So for this, we had to reach out to a lot of experts in the industry and then have their support in building the data sources, and then using those data sources to build data models, and then using those data models to build the algorithm. This was a lot of work again, which I think will not take as much time right now. And also
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, then the last biggest hurdle is all obviously compliance in terms of how data is managed. So we treat data very strict. We understand that this involves a lot of PII and a lot of licensing information and data of individual players, which needs to be
Mm-hmm.
safeguarded. So right from day one, we've built the platform with that security concern in mind. But then we've also worked with multiple compliance vendors to try to get valid certifications so that we hold ourselves accountable for data security, data integrity,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
etc. So
So two main like scenarios, two main like challenges is that like compliance, as you said, and getting all of this data in place, right,
definitely
is
correct.
pretty tough. So okay, yeah, and let's say you were talking about AI in your speech and how it could help you develop, grow faster. Let's say, how do you guys use AI? How do you see AI influences the academies, youth sports, and where do you see the future going with it?
So I think let's first talk about general consumer behavior, right? So
Mhm.
at least 2 years ago, I was Googling, hey, what do I do? What is the best academy management software to use, for example, right? Now, this is real incident. Like people are reaching out to us, and when we ask them the question, how did you learn about Dartle? They're saying ChatGPT.
Okay.
So that's how the world is changing. So you need to optimize, like in terms of at least the way the world is going. Everyone's become very reliant on these AI tools to give you answers.
Mm-hmm.
And the methodology of search is very, very different, right? Earlier, you were searching for something, and then you needed to figure out, you need to go through a lot of these pages to figure out what exactly is the appropriate thing. Versus now, information is being delivered to you and packaged in a way that is easy to consume.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest change. So, in the way that we are personally using AI, is firstly within the team internally, we use AI to improve the productivity of the team. So, which is, as far as the development team is concerned, things that took 8 months to deploy earlier are now being done in 2 weeks, right? So that's a huge improvement. For the product itself and for our consumers, we have an entire AI roadmap that is set out, beginning with how do we use AI to reduce the admin burden of coaches. So I said earlier, can we reduce anything that takes 30 minutes today to 5 minutes now? So
Mm-hmm.
now we are asking the question of, can we either do more things in those 5 minutes just with the click of a button, or can we reduce that even further to a minute or under a minute? So
Mm-hmm.
AI can do a lot of that, and we call that the workflow optimization phase. And then later on, the second thing is recommendation building, because now we have all of this data. What can this data tell a player? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what should your nutrition be like? And so, a lot of these recommendations need to, this is where we would need to build layers of moderated, safeguarded information, because we need to be responsible for what the AI is telling the players. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that is an obvious challenge here as well. But recommendations are going to be the phase two, and then obviously it can go into predictions. So this is how the phases of AI will improve. Now, going back to what I said earlier, even parents today or academies today, I think they will be forced, if they're not already doing it, to think about AI and how AI can
Mm-hmm.
influence their decisions, especially thinking about how AI helps reduce friction.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't, this I think this is one of those moments where you feel like you can get on the boat now. If not, you are really going to be left behind, and there is not. It's going to be really, really difficult to catch up. Which is why I think every academy that we speak to right now, they resonate with the fact that they think, at least they think consciously, that hey, how do I become more data driven? How do I
Mm-hmm.
show the progress based off of evidence? Because now, so I'll show you. I'll tell you an example. So parents today,
Mm-hmm.
before using Dartle, we've heard academies say where parents were going to a coach and asking, "Hey, why was my kid not selected today,
Okay.
right, for this game?" Versus now, parents are going to the coach and asking, because they have this data. They're saying, "Hey, coach, okay, I see where my kid is. How do I improve?"
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the mentality has shifted from "why not my kid" to "how do I improve my kid to get him into the position that he needs to be." So there's going to be overall progress because of, and a lot of it is going to be driven.
Now that sounds pretty interesting. Not only helping, them to manage the growth and development, but relationships with the parents. That's also everyone knows that their kid is the best, but
Absolutely.
yeah. So all right. When people think about sports data, they often think about like clubs, leagues, like the top ones. But you guys focus on academies. So why do you believe the youth development layer might be the most important data layer in the sports ecosystem?
Because if you look at it this way, right? Imagine the amount of people that can actually play at the top level. Let's take English Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
There are 20 teams. Each team could have, say, let's say, maximum capacity 40 squad members per team. And that's 40 multiplied by 20 is a limit to the number of people that can play
Mm-hmm.
at the elite level. But then what happens to the so many other kids who are in the academy, who
Mm-hmm.
grow up and either have big ambitions about, they give it their all, but ultimately they don't make it, or they are left behind because there's no visibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So youth sports is where there's a lot of these gaps, because at the elite level, a lot of these things are already working.
Mm-hmm.
And 99% of the sports enthusiasts are in the other layer. Not sports enthusiasts, at least. I would say people who are playing sports, they are not at the professional level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which is why I think it is really important to go into the youth system,
Mm-hmm.
because fundamentally, if you work with the youth system, and as Dartle, we believe that over time, as youth system is backed by more data, coaches know exactly where to put in the effort instead of, jumping into an ocean and then figuring out how to swim. You know exactly what's the swim lane for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the focus, and by doing this in youth, the quality of the freshmen that are going to come into the elite game is going to improve. So the way this funnels down is, as the quality of the game improves, more people will find entertainment value in this. And as this gets more footfall and eyeballs, more marketing money, more
Mm-hmm.
broadcasting revenue is going to funnel into this. That will further funnel down and
Mm-hmm.
come into youth development again. So take USA for example, like the NBA games, even the college games are now being broadcasted, right? Which is,
Yeah.
so as the quality of the game increases, more leagues gets more visibility, and this in turn generates more revenue. And this can be done by structuring the youth and focusing on the youth instead of just the elite. Because elite anyways there's a lot of money in it. So people are
Mm-hmm.
anyways gonna push it. I believe there are solutions there. But
Mm-hmm.
the youth is where there's a lot of gap, and that's what we're bridging.
Do you think the billion-dollar company will be from youth rather than professional sports?
I think yes, it is. It is going to be a tough place to navigate, but if someone can do right and with a lot of collaboration, the way I see it, I don't think it'll be one single company.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a couple of different companies
Mm-hmm.
working in tandem to make youth sports, and I see the change coming in very very soon. You
Mm-hmm.
will see that, like, just from the past 5 years, look at the number of VCs that have come into the ecosystem. Look at the number of sports tech accelerators and sports tech companies that have started. And like here in India, for example, people are tying the national vision to sports. Sports is an enabler for the sustainability development goal. So from multiple levers, like there's a
Mm-hmm.
push to improve sports, and especially at the grassroots and youth level, where people even see sports as a medium to improve
Mm-hmm.
youth and an individual as a person, like free him from drug addictions, improve his leadership skills and teamwork skills, and reduce even things like suicide by making these people more self-reliant and strong individually, right? So this is what sports can do. It's very very powerful. So I definitely see youth sports exploding. I think it'll just be about, coming across that small plateau before you see a huge spike in how these sports tech companies operate. So definitely, I definitely believe it.
Okay, Nika, what is your? I have a small blitz for you. So personal blitz. I'm interested. What is your favorite sport?
Wow, you've actually put me in a tough place because my favorite sport to play is basketball,
Okay.
but my favorite sport to watch is football, soccer. So I've been an Arsenal fan through and through. Like, I've watched almost every single Arsenal match, including the friendlies, even preseason friendlies, for close to 20 years of my life now.
Mm-hmm.
And hardly missed, like, I keep account of the number of matches I've missed. I've hardly missed like 14 to 15 matches now in these entire 20 years. So,
Wow. Wow. What is your favorite athlete?
favorite athlete, as a favorite football player, my all-time favorite player is Cesc Fabregas.
Mm-hmm. Arsenal. Okay.
Yeah, Arsenal player. But if you ask me who's an overall athlete, I would say Kobe Bryant.
Okay. Yeah. What is the favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of my job
Yeah.
is, you get tired every single night. You get so tired, but next day morning you wake up and you're like, new challenges and new things to go and tackle. So every day is exciting. You never wake up in a day thinking, it's the same old boring day. You never have it. Like, as an entrepreneur, I think you just wake up with that, and the fact that we're doing something that we love, I think, adds to that whole environment, and that's the best thing I love.
What is the worst thing about the job?
The worst thing about the job is managing expectations. So, you have, because obviously being a startup, there's ups and downs. And then you have to manage, you have to talk to your family, because they'll see that, hey, listen, your friend is over there going for this international tour. He's buying a car, a house, while you're sitting here planning out the next 5 years of your business. So there's going to be a lot of peer pressure. There's going to be a lot of family pressure, and then how do you cope up with all of that is definitely a challenge. I think that's kind of like the worst part about it, because then, family is important, but at the same time, you can never say this out loud, but your startup is often your first baby, right?
Yeah, true. Last one. What one advice would you give to someone who wants to start a company?
Okay. See, one of these things I see a lot of people make mistake is we go in because we might have this aha moment where we think, hey, I've landed on this huge idea, right? And then we go out into the market and start making it, which is one of the biggest mistakes I've seen a lot of people do. And it's right in front of my eyes. It's not just one, two, or three people. It's like it's in the hundreds of startups range where you believe in something, you go out there and then start making it before you even realize whether there's a need for it. I've seen this really wonderful piece on that demonstrates what I mean on LinkedIn circulating about an old ad about someone validating a vending machine. So imagine you get the idea of building a vending machine. Before you spend a single buck on building out the vending machine, you're trying to validate whether someone will actually use it. So you place a box, fill it with the items that you need, and then someone comes in, presses a button, right? So right behind the box is you, a physical person sitting there. You see what buttons being pressed. Instead of the whole functioning vending machine, you just pick that item, put it, drop it down, and the user picks it up, and you get the cash. So that's validation of the problem statement. You haven't built out the product yet. So this process is really important. Now, if you see that hundreds of people are actually fascinated by this and use it, now you have a valid problem solution fit. Then you can start building it out, and that's the MVP phase is something that a lot of people overlook. People take a lot of time thinking, I need to build this, I need to perfect this, which often doesn't work. So, as startup founders, I think you need to have more of these conversations with your customers before you go out and spend any dollar trying to build something. So, that would be my advice. Like, you have customer conversations. There's a fascinating book called The Mom Test, which I
Yeah.
think everyone should read. So, that's what I think would be my
Yeah,
advice.
Robin Fitzpatrick, right?
Yes, yes.
All right, Nihal, it was great to have you. I really love your story. Me personally, I'm following you, and I advise everyone to follow Nihal because he's a really smart guy, and I see the perspective of the company. And thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Likewise, it was a pleasure, Kirill. I look forward to probably coming again, but hopefully you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, bye.
Yeah, I'll